It's your chance to ask now a question of Mr. Michelson.
Mr. Michelson, what do you think should be done to address the national debt?
Well, thank you, Brian. One of the biggest things about our national debt is really the unfunded liabilities they have going forward in the future. Social Security is one of those big problems that are going to be in there. It was a good program that started out with good intentions, but as people are living longer, the retirement age is going to have to be raised. We're going to have to reduce some benefits because we've spent a lot of that money in there. The other one is Medicare. It's by far the biggest exposure that we have in our unfunded liabilities in the future. And we need to take some personal responsibility. Diet and lifestyle has been shown to be a lot of the major causes of our health care problems in America. And so we need to address those simple things first. There's not a pill for every ill in America. We need to address those simple things to get our health care under control, too, in the future.
And do you have a response, Mr. Davis?
Greg, I agree with you very much. We do have problems with Social Security, but I would like to repeat, because there is a false and misleading campaign ad out there that zeroes in on me, that we must maintain the promise of Social Security. We have one potential solution, that is a partial privatization. I asked Mr. Walz, rhetorically, what is his plan? He has an attack ad out there against me, which mischaracterizes my position. What is your plan?
All right, and now it is Mr. Walz asking a question of Mr. Davis. This will be the final question in this segment.
Well, Dr. Davis, just over a week ago, you publicly stated that you could not think of a single thing that we could do to improve the health care or education benefits of our veterans. One of the most important things I've done in Congress is to serve on the Veterans Affairs Committee, where I've been at the front and the leader to push important improvements in the care for traumatic brain injury, chronic pain, and the new GI Bill. It's been characterized as the single best package of care for our veterans in this nation's history. If you were in Congress, what specific improvements to veterans' education benefits and health care would you fight for?
Mr. Walz, I respect your military service. Our nation, our state, owe you a debt of gratitude. And I will say also that the GI Bill that passed with overwhelming bipartisan support was long overdue. Long overdue. What I'm more concerned about in that area is the speech that you gave on the floor of Congress that related to it. You talk about acting in a bipartisan manner, yet if people will go on the internet and see the speech that you gave, it was very, very partisan, castigating so many people in Congress. So I have no specific proposals right now because we just passed this, and we need to keep our eye on it, and I will strongly support veterans' benefits. My father fought in World War II. He benefited from being in a VA hospital. I've done some of my training in a VA hospital, and I know the benefit of it.
Mr. Walz, 30 seconds to respond.
So the answer was nothing that's out there. I'll direct you to two organizations since you brought up endorsements. The Disabled American Veterans and the Veterans of Foreign War have endorsed me as their legislator of the year for passing these things. They publish a document every year that's called the Independent Budget. It will give you a suggestion of several thousand things that we can do. The ads that Dr. Davis talks about simply states he wants to privatize Social Security. He reinforced that here. His ad against me says I'm living a double life. I want to look in the veterans' eyes out there, and those of you who know what I've done is what I say in Minnesota is what I do in Washington, and I've been a leader on veterans issues.
All right, thank you all for those enlightening questions and responses. And now for the third segment of this debate. All right, thank you all for those enlightening questions and responses. And now for the third segment of this debate, I will be asking questions specific to each candidate. That means you'll be getting different questions tailored specifically to your individual candidacy. You'll get 45 seconds to respond. There will be no rebuttal from the other candidate. I will begin with Tim Walz, and it's something you just brought up a moment ago. Your opponent, Mr. Davis, is running an ad that says you talk as an independent when you're at home, but when you're in Washington, you consistently vote with Democrats. We also talked about this a little bit earlier. How do you answer this criticism that, as you put it, you lead a double life? Well,
Dr. Davis is confusing the ad issue that we're running with him calling me a liar, and that's exactly what it does, which I will say it's motivated my base very well on this. What I say to that is people of southern Minnesota wanted a change. They sent a high school teacher, they sent a guardsman, they sent a coach to go out there and fight. I fought for veterans. I fought for middle-class people. I fought for transparency in government and got those things done. I've been a leader amongst them. And if there's such an issue that I'm one side or the other on this, I guess the liberal bastion of the National Rifle Association endorsing me is maybe they have gone over too. Everyone seems to disagree with Dr. Davis. When they disagree with him, there's something that they're partisan, they're not telling the truth. There's a possibility in this that people just disagree with your opinion, and the people of southern Minnesota know that I keep my word. It's all I've got, and that integrity is something I will not back down from.
And Mr. Davis, as a physician, what do you see as the single biggest problem with the healthcare system, and what are the first steps you would take to try to address those problems or the biggest problem that you see?
You know, I really think that that's difficult to narrow it down to the single biggest problem, but clearly it's cost is number one, and number two is the demographics are working against us. But it's in a favorable way to be. People are living longer, healthier lives because of all the medical progress that has happened in the past several decades, even since World War II. And I've been involved in medical research since 1983 and involved in patient care since over nearly 20 years. And I can tell you when a patient comes through the door, they don't come through the door as a Republican or Democrat. They come seeking help. And we want to work together with them no matter what their views are to help them with their problems. What I'm concerned about is that some of the proposals that are out there would interfere with that relationship and take away choice.
All right, thank you very much. And Mr. Michelson, you are the only farmer in this race. How would you represent the people of the 1st District differently than your opponents?
Well, I'm very proud of my farming background. Farmers have a lot of good common sense, a lot of personal responsibility. They're good stewards of land. I think those are the things you need to take is just good common sense. We don't need this divisive political atmosphere where you're dividing the people into right and left between Democrats and Republicans and independents. We need to start dividing the country into the other direction and between the people who are trying to play politics and controlling people and those who have a vision for the future and are more concerned about the solutions than the problems.
All right, thank you very much. We'll go now back to Mr. Walz. As a member of the National Guard, you're very familiar with the role that the Guard has played in Iraq and Afghanistan and elsewhere. Some critics say the National Guard's role has been abused in waging war in Iraq and elsewhere. What do you see as the role going forward for the National Guard?
Well, I would disagree that their role has been abused. The lack of planning and the reckless nature behind the Bush administration definitely has put them in a difficult situation. I was part of the transformation of the Guard in the 80s and 90s that moved this force to a force that would be used at a time of combat as well as for national security. The problem is that this administration and the plans and the reckless nature that are being advocated that the Iraqis will somehow decide on this. We must take charge of our National Guard. We must allocate where they're at. They must be home for an adequate amount of time to recover and recuperate. They must be adequately funded and protected. They must be budgeted into the cost of this war. As Greg earlier said, it's absolutely unconscionable. We borrow from the Chinese to send our National Guard to fight in Iraq. The Guard is doing the job they've asked for. They just need better leadership in the White House.
Brian Davis, in the past you have said that tort reform could help with job creation. Can you explain what you mean by that and what kind of reforms would you suggest?
Well, we are drowning in this country with lawsuits. Over 250 million per year. If I'm not mistaken, that's more than the rest of the world combined. Frivolous lawsuits. People are afraid to start businesses, hire extra employees because of the cost. When it comes to the medical profession, like the Minnesota Medical Association and so many other medical associations, I support malpractice reform, I support tort reform, and this is how I differ with Mr. Walz on this issue. That we need to have some caps in place, we need to stop it from interfering with our economy the way that it is, and still allow people to get legal redress when they need it.
Mr. Michelson, you obviously face an uphill battle as an independence party candidate, a third-party candidate. Going forward, do you support some kind of campaign reform that would hopefully level the playing field for third-party candidates to expand just beyond Republicans and Democrats?
I think people need to be more involved. Our future is not in our politicians' hands. It's in about the general public's hands to take a more active involvement in politics. I think there's been a lot of apathy in the past, and they've been hoping that our congressmen and our governors and presidents were all going to do a good job. That's just not so. Party politics has gotten in the way, and it becomes a power struggle in there. So we need to eliminate that. We need to get people back involved. That's why I'm running. I felt a personal responsibility to contribute back to this fine country and get us back on our feet.
Mr. Walz,